Well, today begins with an SSD and a transaction with another friend that I've dealt with twice before, a crypto YouTuber, Hawk Crypto Mining. You can't have a video of mine without a cat meowing in it, so there you go. Soon to be Terra hosting. I had a conversation with him and I ended up buying two Octominer X8 Ultra Plus rigs from him, one of which I'm going to keep and the other one I'm going to sell at cost to a local mining friend that wants to bolster his farm a little bit. So, without further ado, let's do one of those panda snap things. Oh, big boy. Looks like this was extremely well packaged, so not his fault, but we do have a bent handle and a little bit of a gap right here. Oh well, it's a little tweaked, but not too bad. So this is an Octominer X8 Ultra Plus. This is one of their newer models. However, it has ups and downs from an X12. This does have an earlier gen Intel Core processor, so it draws a little bit more juice, but it does still have platinum power supplies, and it actually has 4 of them in this configuration instead of 2. So 4 750s in this versus 2 1200s in an X12. And obviously 8 GPUs instead of 12, but these do offer you a little bit more space for thicker cards. So let me pull, there's 2 Phillips screws in the back here. I'm gonna take those off. Let's take a look inside and see if the cards look like they survived. So it does indeed look like everything survived. I don't see anything obviously broken. So yeah, this is basically the system on a by 16 style PCIe card. Uses a 6-pin for power, and then we've got 8 RTX 3070 Ti FTW3s. They're a little dusty, but really not too bad considering the environment that this was run in. I'm not sure if this is supposed to come with more cables than that, but either way, it's plenty for the setup we have here. I'm actually kind of blown away. These are really thin. Let's see if it shows a gauge on here. It does say 18, but we know from experience that that means 22. Looks like they might have loosened up a little bit from shipping, but this rig came 2,000 miles via FedEx ground, and it looks this good. I'll take it. I am going to grab an SSD and fish out the power and SATA right here, and let's get this thing plugged in and see if it boots. Well, we have lights. It's a little on the noisy side. I'm gonna wait for it to boot and see if I can get into Hive and turn that down a little bit. Switching phones. So they are coming up. It looks like everything probably survived, but I need to do an update. They are coming up as malfunction, but the driver version's really old on this install, so I'm guessing they'll come up okay. This is a manual fan speed of 20% set here, which you can do when you have an Octominer. You get an extra set of parameters, and you can just key in a manual fan speed, or you can use it like you would auto fan for your GPUs and just have it go on card temperature. But we can see the specs right down here. This is a Celeron G1840, so you max out at like an i7 3770 probably, but I don't know if I would trust the VRM on that bad boy with an i7, so Celeron, fine. We're not gonna CPU mine on it. And then, yeah, the proprietary motherboard with a roughly year-old BIOS on it. So anyway, yeah, I'm gonna wait for this to update fully. Let's see. It's still updating. We'll come back to it as soon as it has drivers. And then let's see. It looks like it's already set up with Kaspa. I should probably pull that flight sheet and do some overclocks. I figured out the wavy screen thing. Sorry. I maximized the brightness. I did an update on Hive, but the driver is still ancient. Where is it? It's up here. So I need to go into Hive Shell, and we need to do an NVIDIA driver update. Here we go. Aha, there is one thing. Nobody ever reads the manual, but I'm gonna put the coin cell in there so the BIOS settings get saved. Okay, so I'm gonna try Kaspa. I did set up a flight sheet with BZ Miner. I've got 1500 OC core clock, 400 offset, and 810 memory. I might have to dial that back because that's pretty aggressive, but the GA104s on these 3070 Ti's are usually pretty good. So we'll see what ends up happening. I'm just going to do a reboot because anytime you use a command line argument OC, you seem to need a reboot. Okay, I was pounding my head against the wall. This is all listed in kilohash and megahash, which is totally wrong, but if I go into Hive Shell, it's listing miner and megahash. So I think I need to go to the pool and confirm that this is actually in gigahash, which I'm pretty sure it is. Oh, pool hash rate. All right, I need to go back to my old OCs. This is pretty good, but I had, I think, a better OC in there before. And now it's registering perfectly. Okay. All right, so that 823 watts, we're actually at 613 here. I need to disable everything else that's on this power strip, but I'm a little curious to see how accurate the HiveOS power reading actually is on 110 volts AC. So what I'm gonna do is I've got a kilowatt on this plug, and very temporarily, and unplug one of those power supplies. And we've got 653. I show. That's way wrong. There, 631. So it's close. And I'm going to plug this back in because that power supply is working real hard. Anyway, I have these on Kaspa. The reason why I have them on Kaspa, these cards have a deliciously well-binned GA104 graphics core die. The GA104 is used in the 3060 V1, the 3060 Ti, the 3070, the 3070 Ti, and it's also used in the Quadro A4000. The 3070 Ti and the A4000 share the same die. These have 8 gigs of RAM, the A4000 has 16, but these use GDDR6X, and those cards use GDDR6. So the reason why the A4000 was so great for efficiency is because GDDR6 runs at much lower clocks and uses a lot less power. With the newer command line arguments, which I'll show you in just a second for BZMiner in this case, you can declock the GDDR6X so much that it barely draws any power, and you can just leverage that really sweet core. So right now you can see that these are drawing 70 to 75 watts, a little bit less on zero there, and they're doing about 520 megahash each average on Kaspa, which is fantastic. It's really, really good efficiency. This is a core heavy algorithm, so this, Radiant, Flux, all kind of in the same boat there. And I mentioned command line arguments. So if you use BZMiner, you go in, you create your flight sheet as normal, but you actually have to go into setup miner config, and there's a few things here. So the first one you're going to key in is this OC underscore lock underscore memory underscore clock. 810 seems to be a number that everyone's using. I don't know if there's anything to that, or you can't use other low numbers, but I'm guessing that's the lowest that the card will allow. That's roughly 1/10 of the clock speed that this RAM would normally run at. I have core clock offset, which I'll touch on in just a second, and then we have lock core clock. So lock core clock, I would do 1410 or 1400, unless you've got a high tier bin card. So if you've got like a 3090, a 3070 Ti, even a 3060 potentially. So anything that's got the top end bin of that particular graphics die, you can go up a little bit. I've even got 1550 on a couple of mine, but some of them won't take it. And these are FTW3s, so these are already further binned by EVGA. The core clock offset, what that is, essentially is it's a voltage reduction curve, so it's an undervolt. So the higher that number is, the more you're kind of strangling off the card's core power supply. So if you have a really good core bin, you can go up quite a bit on those numbers, but I would suggest starting at 150 or 200 if you don't know your card very well, and then upping it maybe 50 at a time per card, and then rebooting in between just to see what you can get at. But the higher that number, and 400 is pretty high, the better your efficiency will end up being. So 3070 Ti's actually are, I think, the best 30 series card efficiency-wise on Kaspa. They're very similar to a really good 3070, but right now these cards aren't very sought after for mining because that memory is so power intensive when you're mining mem-intensive algorithms. So if you can get pardon me, some really good deals on 3070 Ti's, I would maybe look at picking them up. That's what I did, and I'm really happy with this rig. I mean, it's drawing 650 watts at the plug, and it's an Octominer X8 with the fans. The temperatures are all insanely good. I'm running the Octominer at 20% fan and all the cards at 40. There's a little bit of heat coming out of the PSUs, but it's really not terrible. I'm only using 2 of the 4. Yeah, this thing's pretty sweet, man. I'm really, really happy with this pickup. The OLED on the front is giving us all the pertinent information. But yeah, I have to say, this thing is remarkably quiet when you're not really pushing it. So I'm a fan. I mean, server cases aren't much to look at, I grant. I much prefer even a nasty open frame rig normally, but this thing's pretty cool, and there's a lot more I want to try out. I saw once upon a time, oh, look at that. I really want to try this. I've never seen anyone on YouTube cover it. So I schedule a lot of my crypto mining rigs, and normally when you build a rig, you get reboot, shutdown, and boot in 30 seconds as options. They work. These are additional Octominer direct commands. So I'm really curious, if I'm on a different LAN, if I can shove a Wacom LAN packet to this thing and boot it. So if it's off, but it's just sitting there with the power supplies connected and Ethernet connected, if I can get this thing to boot up essentially like a schedule without using a smart plug, so I could potentially use 240 volt power. So I do really want to try that. Actually, maybe I'll do it right now. And there we go. Yeah, 211 watts of overhead for the lights and things like that. So I am on a different local network. I'm actually on my guest network with this laptop now. Oh, no, you do have to be on the local network. That sucks. All right, well, there's that. That doesn't work unless you're on the local LAN.